Oh no! Wow, I the bottom of that. I don't mind this one.
Yes, we should be.
So anyway, that's probably, that's what you're here. Me? You know what? I did. They kept repeating it. I can't start without you. Well, you can't start without me, and I can't start without my Bible. Well, good evening. All right. Well, we are here. Got to the end of chapter 3. All right. So we're going to start here in chapter 4. Oh, no, that's right. We were going to talk about the edict at the end of chapter 3. That's right. All right. Let's go and start with a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to begin in Esther chapter 3. And we'll start right around verse 12. Just get a good head start into our material for the night. Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this wonderful and beautiful day. It is a day full of blessings. Even the very worst of our days, we still have to count our blessings and know that we are such fortunate and wonderful, wonderfully blessed people. We pray that as we enter into our Bible study that you open up our hearts and our minds and help us to receive truth and knowledge and wisdom. And may that wisdom continue to grow in our lives. You have promised us that if we simply ask with an open heart, that you will grant wisdom to those who are lacking. And so we ask you, God, to grant that wisdom to us. We love you so much, and we love your Son, Jesus Christ. We pray all this in his name. Amen. Okay, so here we are in... Hi, Rebecca.
Amy Ford.
She needed to get a blanket while talking to Amy Ford. Okay. So Esther chapter 3. So Esther has gone. Haman has gone before King Xerxes, told him about this pernicious people that lives in his kingdom that needs to be destroyed. Xerxes gave him permission, essentially carte blanche, blank check. Do whatever you want. The silver's yours, and you've got people at your disposal. Whatever resources you need, you go ahead and do it. Oh, and while I'm at it here, why don't you just take my signet ring and just, listen, put my signet mark on anything you need, okay? So, okay, Xerxes, that's good leadership 101 right there. So let's pick up here in verse 12. So then the king's scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month, and it was written just as Haman commanded to the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province, and to the princes of each people, each province according to its script, each people according to its language, being written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring. I think we mentioned on Sunday, this was a comprehensive edict. This was all people, all languages, whatever your dialect was, you're going to know what the king's command here is. It's going to be written in your language so you understand it. Verse 13, and letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews. Okay, thoughts there on verse 13? Thorough. Yeah. That's like, how many more words can we just stuff in there to get the point across? I want them absolutely destroyed. To destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews. Now don't let it be lost on you. As we said on Sunday, Haman is an Agagite, which probably means he was an Amalekite, right? Descended from King Agag, the king of the Amalekites, from 1 Samuel, where Saul was ordered to go do what to the Amalekites? What was the order to Saul? You're going to go to the Amalekites and do what?
Utterly destroy them.
Utterly destroy them. That was the order. Do you think that it's a little bit poetic that Haman gives the same order to be done to the Jews? Your people wanted my people utterly destroyed. Man, woman, and child, all the way down to our livestock and our pets. So I want every Jew in this kingdom destroyed, annihilated, and absolutely dead and gone. I think it's interesting, given who he's descended from, I think it's more than coincidence. I think it's pure villainous poetry that he wants done to the Jews what God ordered the Jews to do to the Amalekites. Now, I may be overstating that. I don't think I am. I think that seems like a very intentional sort of thing, doesn't it? Both young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, and to seize their possessions as plunder. We could go back to 1 Samuel and read it here if you want to in 1 Samuel chapter 15. 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 3, now go and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that he has. Do not spare him. Put to death both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. So it's the same order, isn't it? Young and old, man and woman, utterly destroy them. The same order. And to seize their possessions as plunder. A copy, verse 14, of the edict to be issued as law in every province was published to all the peoples so that they should be ready for this day. The couriers went out, impelled by the king's command, while the decree was issued in Susa, the capital, and while the king and Haman sat down to drink, the city of Susa was in confusion. What do you think about verse 15? Give me some commentary on verse 15. What do you think about the king and Haman, first of all?
They're pretty nonchalant about this.
Yeah, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yep. They're just sitting down, toasting a good decision, right? They've issued this edict. Xerxes is all satisfied because, like, good job, Haman. I'm glad you noticed that this rebellious people, is in my kingdom. Glad you took care of that, right? And they're just sitting down to drinks. They're just sitting down to drinks, Brian.
As brutal as this is, and I know a lot of these Persian kings were brutal, maybe not as much as the Syrian king. This sounds more like something the Syrian king would do, and just not give a thought about it.
Yeah.
From what you've been saying about Xerxes, it doesn't seem to have that type of personality. Or it's just his personality so up and down, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, the impression I get from some of the reading is that he was pretty
Mercurial?
Yeah, mercurial. That's a good. Yeah, hard to predict, hard to explain. He was very successful as a king. Persia thrived under him. Like, this was, even though he lost to the Greeks, which was certainly the low point of his time, it's not like Persia was in decline or something. They just couldn't beat the Greeks on the Greek mainland. Like,
I haven't heard where he was known to just brutalize people.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But does Haman know how to present it? Like, he's presented it as these are rebellious people. They're a hive of villainy and scum that live among your kingdom. Like, we need to annihilate. And maybe this is just at a point in Xerxes' life where he feels like this is something he can control. If he can't defeat the Greeks, well, what can we do? Like, well, at least I go make sure that the home front is secure. Yeah.
Why do you think he waited a year? Set the date for a year?
Because, well, I mean, let's think about it in just practical terms. And this is a completely silly situation. I'm not saying that Donald Trump, our president, would ever call for an entire race to be utterly wiped off the face of the earth or something. But, I mean, let's just say we got an edict from on high in Washington, D.C. that said, all right, well, from now on, I've decided that no more Korean people in the United States of America. Koreans are nothing but trouble. Korean barbecue really isn't as good as everyone says it is. I'm not saying that. That was Donald Trump, okay? I'm not saying. I'm quoting fantasy Donald Trump. And let's say we get an edict that we're going to annihilate every Korean person in the United States of America. How long would it take to, like, the logistics of that? Like, how long would that take? A year? I mean, give it a year. Like, the amount of manpower and resources and rounding people up and all this. Like, I just think that probably in an empire that's this big, you're going to need some time. You're going to need a runway for a big thing like this.
I guess in my mind, because obviously Mordecai learned about it, so other Jews learned about it. So, I mean, obviously they had an opportunity that they could flee.
Yeah.
They could leave the country or leave the kingdom or whatever. I don't know. I just thought it was odd that it was on this day. This is the annihilation day.
Yeah. Yeah. He issues it the first month, and he says in the 12th month is the day that it will happen. Now, you're right. Like I said, I think it would just be the logistics of it, like the creating posses and parties and being able to actually annihilating an entire race of people that is spread out fairly evenly over an entire empire. I think just is a big undertaking. So
would it give people time to leave instead?
Maybe. But do you view Haman as anyone who's doing something out of mercy? I just imagine realistically, Haman just knows it takes a lot of logistics to do this. This is a huge campaign. This is essentially as complicated as a military campaign just within your own borders. There's rounding people up. I just think the logistics of it are just huge, and he wants to make sure it's done. Personally, I don't view this as like, You have a chance to leave. I'll be merciful. Get out while you can. Because Haman doesn't seem like the kind of guy who wants the Jews to escape. He seems like the kind of guy that wants the Jews to be trapped and killed, because that's what vengeance is. So, like I said, I think it's just the logistics of it. It's just planning an operation like this. Yvonne?
Thinking about that, he may want the Jews to suffer for a year.
Could be.
If you think, I'm going to be killed in a year, that's going to change your whole
the dread.
thinking and what you do.
And it's like the powerlessness of it. Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go? I mean, if you're in the Persian Empire, on foot, like let's just say I plop you down in the middle of Iran, okay? And I say they're out to kill you. Someone's going to kill you. You've got 1 year with no resources, no money, and you got to go on foot. Go find a safe place to go. Like, where are you going to go? I mean, on foot. I mean, you can't. You're not going to go out in like the Sinai Peninsula where there's no food or water or shade, and you're just going to die of starvation out there. So I think there's some dread that falls upon you too for all of this.
Right. I also noticed there, very last part of chapter 3, it says the city of Susa was perplexed or bewildered.
Mm-hmm.
And
thrown into confusion in New American Standard.
Well, you think that's because they're thinking, well, these people aren't like that.
Yes.
Okay.
That I was going to get to. That was point number 2 from verse 15. That's also an intriguing thing is they just make this edict. I think it shows a little bit of the way that Xerxes was kind of out of touch. He just let, hey, Haman, here's my signet ring. This sounds like a great idea. But what Xerxes was allowing Haman to do was not a reflection of what Persian policy actually was. It was Haman's revenge. He wanted revenge. I mean, just think about it. What if we did get an edict from President Trump tomorrow, and he went on national TV in a press conference and said, I am declaring that we're going to destroy every Korean person in the United States of America. Would we all be a little confused by that? Like, my neighbors are Korean. Like, I mean it. Literally, my neighbors are Korean, and they're absolutely the best neighbors we've ever had. Like, if that came out of nowhere, just we're going to destroy all the Koreans, we're going to totally annihilate them on this day, on this month, would we just go like, what? What am I supposed to do with my neighbors? Like, am I going to hide my neighbors in my attic and like that? Like, I think we'd all be very confused because this sort of comes out of nowhere. The Jews were a peaceful, law-abiding people in large part and were productive members of both Babylonian and then Persian society. And a lot of Jews had reached places in society of pretty elevated status. I mean, Daniel being the most prominent example. But so I think, like Susa, the capital, is like, where is this coming from? Everybody's confused except for Haman, who's getting drinks with Xerxes because Xerxes just gave him carte blanche approval to do whatever he wanted. This is pure vengeance. It is coming from the mind of one extremely bitter man who takes something from history from hundreds of years ago and says, I'm not over that yet. I'm not over it. I want to destroy every single Jew. My blood's boiling. Every time Mordecai walks across the road, I just want to run him over with a camel. Can't stand the guy. All right, any other thoughts through chapter 3? All right, let's get into chapter 4 then. So when Mordecai learned all that had been done, so let's give Mordecai some credit. And by the way, this gives credence to the theory that I have that Mordecai must have served in some capacity in the palace. Like every time you meet Mordecai, he's at the king's gate or he's around other servants and officials. He's kind of, in the midst of conversations about things in the palace. He learns things. People give him information. I think he was, if not an important person, he was somebody who belonged in the palace and had a job, a role of some kind serving in the palace. So he learns about everything that had been done. And he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city and wailed loudly and bitterly. And he went as far as the king's gate, for no one was to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. And in each and every province where the command and decree of the king came, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing, and many lay on sackcloth and ashes. Okay, so we have these first three verses of chapter 4. What do you make of Mordecai's response? First of all, maybe it goes without saying, I don't want to be, asked obvious questions here, but this custom of sackcloth and ashes is not something that we do. Maybe it's too obvious of a question, but what is represented by this custom of weeping and wailing and laying on sackcloth and ashes?
Mourning.
Okay, mourning. A loved one is dying. You're in a dire situation of some kind. Yeah, you're mourning. Sackcloth. Comfortable? What does sackcloth feel like?
Burlap.
Yeah, like burlap. Yeah, itchy, scratchy. It's not meant to go on skin. It's meant to hold grain and sand, right? I mean, it's sackcloth. It is what it is. So it's kind of a self-punishment of some kind. But it's not really the idea of like self-punishment. It's more the idea of putting yourself in a place of sobriety and seriousness, right? It's like reminding yourself, even through tactile contact, right, that you're in a dire situation and that you're grieving and you're sad and you're frustrated by something.
I think it's also about making sure that outwardly, it's basically you're expressing your inward feeling outwardly.
Yeah.
In every aspect of your life. I mean, it's totally visual to everybody around you, everyone that walks past you.
Yeah.
That you are grieved.
Yeah. Ashes get in your hair and it leaves soot on your face and it's irritating, right? I mean, ashes on your body or in your hair is irritating. It's an irritant to the skin. I mean, we use, like charcoal as an exfoliant, right? So it's not like it's comfortable to have ashes in your scalp or something like that. Kind of like someone who's been out on a campfire. You can always tell they've been on a campfire because they've got ashes all on their hair. So like you said, it's obvious. It's visually obvious when you see someone who's been laying in ashes. You can tell that it's a very obvious thing that they're doing. And the Jews seem to all with one accord be taking on the sackcloth and ashes because of this edict. So verse 4, so then Esther's maidens and her eunuchs came and told her, and the queen writhed in great anguish, and she sent garments to clothe Mordecai that he might remove his sackcloth from him, but he did not accept them. Then Esther summoned Hathach from the king's eunuchs, whom the king had appointed to attend to her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what this was and why it was. So it doesn't appear that Esther knows about the edict. All she knows is she can see right up to the king's gate. She can see out her window or her lattice. She can see that her uncle Mordecai is out there mourning and covered in sackcloth and ashes in this very public display. And I don't think it's embarrassment. I think it's just comfort. I think she's trying to comfort him. Whatever's going on, let's put some comfortable clothes on him and let's kind of ease his suffering of some kind. So it doesn't seem like she knows what's going on. So Hathach went out to Mordecai to the city square in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him and the exact amount of money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. Again, here's Mordecai privy to information. He seems to be very well connected. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict which had been issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show Esther and inform her, and to order her to go into the king to implore his favor and to plead with him for her people. Okay, thoughts through verse 8 now. What good can Esther do? Why is he imploring Esther? I know we keep reading the story. I get that. The story it's a very straightforward narrative, so it's not like it's asking us to do a lot of like deep conversation here. But I mean, it's worth asking.
She's got the only ear that can do anything.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, Mordecai can't come in. Who's Mordecai? At best, he's just a servant. He's not some important official or anything like that. So, does anybody else have a vested interest in the outcome of the Jews? No, probably not, except for Esther, because they're her people. Yeah, Yvonne?
I was going to say, would Esther have sent him clothes so that he could appear before the king if he
Haven't thought about that.
changed his mind? Because it says, I've read somewhere that you couldn't go into the castle in sackcloth and ashes.
Yeah, I mean it does. Yeah, it does say that he went all the way. Yeah, he went all the way up to the king's gate. That's verse 2. Yeah, no one was to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. Yeah, I think if you put 2 and 2 together, I can see that. That maybe she sees all she can tell is Mordecai is in distress about something. He's in sackcloth and ashes. I can't help him because he's outside the gate. I can't leave the harem without permission or without my attendants coming with me. Can somebody go get him? Hey, what's his name? Hathach. Go change his clothes and dress him up so that he can enter into the palace so that we can fix whatever's going on. So it could be she's just trying to make sure he has access to get in so she can find out what's going on. Yeah, I think put 2 and 2 together. I think that's a good thought. Yeah.
He may not be still able to go to the king because the king's got a son now.
Yeah.
But you're right. He can at least come on in. She could visit with him.
Yeah. Yeah, but in his current state, he can't. Yeah, he can't even enter. Yeah, such a thing would be an embarrassment and an impertinence on his part to come into the palace like that. I think it's interesting also. You know, he has to send her a copy of the decree. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? How she's the king's wife and his favorite in the harem. She's the queen. Does she know that this edict has been sent out? No. Until Mordecai tells her about it, she doesn't even know what's going on. She has to see a copy of it for herself from another source, which I think is an important detail. It gives us a glimpse into why she's so anxious to go see Xerxes. Is it possible, I'm just saying as a theory, is it possible, not that she's fallen out of favor, but that the king has just been very busy and he just hasn't kind of been interested in seeing her lately? I mean, she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't hear any news. It's not like she went to go see Xerxes and he said, "Oh man, yeah, at work today. Yeah, Haman and I were sitting there toasting to our great success of this great edict that we just proclaimed throughout the kingdom." It's not like he's telling her about his day or like the comings and goings of his attendants or his viziers. He's not sharing anything with Esther. She doesn't know what's going on out there. And so maybe there's just not really been a lot of interaction. And so when Mordecai says, "You've got to go to the king, you've got to talk to him," she's like, he doesn't talk to me anymore. He hasn't talked to me in weeks or months. I mean, I didn't even know this thing was issued. I had no idea that this was going on. It just shows how disconnected we were. So it kind of gives I think maybe a clue or a glimpse into that there just maybe was not a lot of interaction between them. And it would fit. I mean, Xerxes is the kind of guy that when he got angry at Vashti, he said, "Get her out of my sight. I want a new queen." And then he gets Esther, and maybe the thrill wore off, and he got used to her, and he got busy with other things, and there's other projects, and he's building palaces and bridges and engineering projects, and he's just kind of out of sight, out of mind. He just leaves Esther in her harem to just sit there and look pretty whenever he needs her.
It kind of reminds me of like, the mafia shows or something, is you got the king and the leaders, and they've got this work that's going on, and some of it is good, bridge building and nice work, but there's a lot of, killing and destroying and protecting territory.
Yeah.
That they probably didn't come home and share with the family like the mafia shows. They're doing all this bad stuff and killed, but then they shows them at home eating dinner with their family and kids running around. It's like,
I'm a legitimate businessman, right? Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
I
I was wondering if the king really knew it was the Jews, because Haman says back in 8, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed. So maybe the king doesn't even know exactly who the people are that Haman wants to destroy.
Maybe the king never even read the decree.
Right. I mean, because...
Yeah. Would it be the first time or the last time that a powerful person signed something without reading it? Now, the decree specifically says the Jews, chapter 3, verse 13, to destroy, to kill, and annihilate all the Jews. So the decree says that, but maybe he never read it. Maybe, he gave Haman, hey, Haman, carte blanche, permission, do whatever you got to do. And then they're just toasting to it like, hey, I dealt with that thing. Remember that thing I told you about last week? I went ahead and dealt with the thing. Wink, wink. Oh, yes, well, toast to that, yes. I'm glad you're on it, Haman. Wouldn't want to have any troublemakers in my empire. Maybe he has no idea. Yeah, he signed it without reading it.
Sounds like he didn't even have to sign it. He just had that signature.
Again, yeah, just take the ring. You use the ring, whatever you need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Does it also show how separated the harem was?
Yeah, could be.
The general public and what was going on.
Yeah, were these queens and princesses and were they brought in for their political acumen? No. Yeah, they were not. Yeah, they were not included. Vashti's only role in politics was when I've got all my buddies, my powerful, rich oligarchs from my empire, and I want you to come out and trot around and show off your beauty with your crown on your head. That was Vashti's official capacity in the palace. So it's not like Esther was brought in again for her political acumen. Although she certainly does have the acumen for it. She's got the wisdom and the intellect for it, to be sure.
Esther probably didn't even tell him that she was a Jew.
Yeah, Mordecai. Yeah, exactly. Mordecai told her to keep it a secret. So, okay, verse 9. So Hathach came back and related Mordecai's words to Esther. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and ordered him to reply to Mordecai. So here's Hathach, the go-between, because Mordecai's clearly not in a state to be in the palace, and she's still trying to talk to him. All the king's servants, verse 11, and the people of the king's provinces know that for any man or woman who comes to the king, to the inner court, who is not summoned, he has but one law, that he be put to death, unless the king holds out to him the golden scepter so that he may live. And I have not been summoned to come to the king for 30 days. And they related Esther's words to Mordecai. So verse 13. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not imagine that you in the king's palace can escape any more than all the Jews. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you've not attained to royalty for such a time as this? And we'll look at the response here in just a second. This is, in a lot of ways, this is the thesis statement of the book of Esther. And this is really what it boils down to. God is never mentioned. We talked about theories about little hidden, code words for Yahweh in the book, but he's never directly mentioned. And yet Mordecai holds firmly to his faith that the people of Israel are a special people set apart and that they will be delivered. And he holds on to that. I mean, his options are either hold on to that hope or don't. You can fall into despair or believe. And that's from the big stuff to the really little stuff. I mean, without hope, what are we? Now, I'm not saying that just because you hope in something means that it's going to come true. I mean, you can hope that a disease gets cured. You can hope that it goes into remission. You can hope that, a windfall of some kind comes and helps relieve a financial burden of some kind. I mean, you can hope. That doesn't guarantee that your problems are going to go away. But I will say, if your choices are, I've got a big problem, I can either hope and be optimistic about this, or I can have no hope and fall into despair. I think without our hope, whether it gets fixed or not, whether you're delivered or not, I think a lot of people don't live to see the day of deliverance if they fall into despair. So one of my favorite books, okay, I'm going to give you a book recommendation. It's written by Dr. Viktor Frankl. Okay, he was a Jewish doctor who was taken away during the Holocaust to a concentration camp, and he spent time in Auschwitz. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, in which he details in the first half of the book his experiences being a camp doctor to the Jews in Auschwitz. He himself was a Jew, he's passed away. But he talks about, as a camp doctor, he got to see lots and lots of people both die and also endure. And so he wrote this book about what is the difference between the people who died and the people who managed to endure it. Because people did survive. He survived. And he said it was always the people who held on to meaning and purpose and a future. Now, just because you hold on to a future doesn't mean, you're not guaranteed it, right? You may just get shot randomly, right? We've probably all seen Schindler's List, and I mean, you may be the most hopeful and optimistic person, and you may have bolstered your faith, and you believe there will be deliverance, and you just get shot in the back of the head one day at random, okay? So it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be delivered, but Viktor Frankl observed that the people who lost their hope were guaranteed to die. Like that was when he saw them in the camp hospital, sick and in bed, the people he just said you could look at their faces, you could see it in their eyes, and you knew when the light went out and people lost hope. And when people lose hope, they're done. They're guaranteed to lose. So I really appreciate Haman. Haman doesn't have military might or martial skills or some secret plan. Like he's not James Bond, like, well, if we only get to the palace and deactivate this, it'll save the Jews. Like, he doesn't have a secret plan, a secret device, a secret weapon. All he has is, Esther, I believe we'll be delivered. I believe it. And either we're going to be delivered because you choose to do something right now, or we'll be delivered in some other way. But I'm not giving up hope. I believe that we're going to be delivered. And I really, really love Mordecai's attitude here. Okay, good book recommendation. I love it. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. The second half of the book, he talks a lot about psychotherapy and everything. It's not as interesting because I'm not a psychologist, but the first half of the book is like really riveting as far as that Holocaust and Auschwitz survival. Yeah, Brian?
And then, this may not be right or even close, but I always thought that maybe when he says, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will rise from the place. Is he alluding at all to God has this plan? Do you think he even knows about the eternal plan? Because I mean, obviously, God would have, his will would have been done, and we still had some remnant of Jews left for Christ to come. But do you think he knew that much?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I don't think he's speaking as we have hindsight where we can look at it, and ultimately, deliverance in Purim is one thing, but the ultimate deliverance comes in Jesus Christ. Coming from the Jews, Galatians 4, born a Jew, born of a woman, right? Born under the law. So that's the ultimate deliverance through the Jewish people. I don't think he speaks as a prophet here intentionally, but again, providence. God is providentially speaking through him, pointing to a bigger picture, I think.
I mean, I guess what I'm thinking is he might have, with some of the priests and scholars, scribes, even there, he might have learned of all the prophecies in Isaiah. Yeah. And so on. I mean, of course, I don't think they all fully understood it. Yeah. I mean, and they always thought they were the children of God. They would be received. Yeah.
So what you're getting at is, and I don't disagree, I mean, it's possible, what you're getting at is that Mordecai, as a Jew, who we assume, it's never stated, but I assume that Mordecai was a faithful believer in God as a Jew, that Mordecai, as a Jew, believes that his people are serving a great purpose, and that through them, God will bring about something amazing, a Messiah, right? The Messiah will come through them. And so he's saying, you know what? God promised Abraham all the way back in Genesis. God told Abraham, our father Abraham, the whole world would be blessed through your seed. And I believe that God has not brought that promise to fruition yet. And so if we believe that the world will be blessed through the seed of Abraham, then that means God will not let the light go out on the Jews as a people. I believe God will deliver us because he has more promises yet to be fulfilled in us. That's probably ascribing quite a bit of depth to Mordecai that is not required of us from the text. But I think in hindsight, that somebody like a very faithful prophet, someone like an Ezekiel or a Jeremiah, probably would have taken that view, given what he knows by inspiration. Yeah, I think it's a great way to look at it. Okay, practical application. Let's talk about some situations, for God's providential deliverance. Are there some examples in the Bible off the top of your head where God delivered someone or a group of someones in maybe an unexpected way? Jonah, right? Jonah, great. Joseph, yes, Joseph is a great example. Every time life got a little bit better for Joseph. Okay, that's a great one. Yeah, hey, Moses, why did God make us leave Egypt just so he could strand us on the shore of the Red Sea, trapped between the sea and the mountains and the army of Egypt? Did God just bring us out here to have us slaughtered? Oh, no, wait. God's got something in mind here. You will never even believe it. You will not believe what you're about to see. So yeah, crossing of the Red Sea, that's great. That's really great. I think there were probably a lot of times in David's life where he survived by the skin of his teeth because of never could have predicted that person, that situation would unfold the way that it did, that he would get deliverance from this unexpected source. David owed a lot to a lot of people in his life for kind of, saving his skin. Okay?
Even when he was little with the, Goliath. Yeah,
even with Goliath. Yeah. Or being able to kill a lion and a bear. How about Ruth or Naomi? Naomi says, "Oh, don't call me sweet anymore. No, call me bitter. I'm bitter from now. That's my name is bitter." And by the end of the story, everyone's looking at Naomi saying, "Look at Ruth. Look at what Ruth has done. Isn't Ruth better?" Was it 10 sons? I think they said 7 sons, 10. I don't remember the exact number, but Ruth is better to you than 10 sons. You had no idea that the blessing would come from Ruth. This she's just a leftover from your life in the land of the Moabites. She's just dragging around, following you around like a lost puppy or something. You had no idea that your deliverance was going to come because of Ruth and Boaz and their sweet little child that they have. There's a lot of cases where people get kind of delivered by just the most unexpected sort of happenstance. We were just studying in my Tuesday morning class at Heritage from the book of Acts, and when Paul is in Jerusalem and the mob is there, and he gets grabbed by the Roman soldiers, and they're trying to figure out who he is, and so we'll just put him in the barracks and we'll figure this out. And by just sheer coincidence, Paul's sister's son, his nephew, happens to hear about an oath that a bunch of Jews take to say, "I will not eat or drink a thing until Paul is dead. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell the Romans to bring him out so we can meet him and we'll kill him along the way." Right? And this nephew just happens to hear, sheer coincidence, and goes to the Roman soldier and said, "Hey, this is what I've heard." And the Roman soldier says, "Okay, well, we'll abscond away with him at night, take him to Caesarea where he'll be saved." Pure coincidence, right? Or not, or providence, right? A lot of cases like that where you have no idea until you look at it in hindsight, where you go, if we had not done that, if we had not had that happen, if the tire had not gone flat, if that medical emergency had not happened, if we had not lost that job, if, whatever tragedy it was that eventually somehow leads to a really amazing, wonderful thing in your life, never would have happened. So, God will bring deliverance. The question is not, is God capable of bringing deliverance? The question is, are you willing to have enough faith and hope to live long enough to see that deliverance? Because like I said, from man's search for meaning, there were people that died in those concentration camps right up until the day before they would have been set free by Allied forces. I mean, just think about how hard that would be to, you're a survivor and you dragged along your best friend or whatever all those days, and then he gives up just the day before an Allied tank comes and busts the doors open. And he gave up. He didn't have one more day of hope in him to see the day of deliverance come. Yeah, I don't know. That just hits me. That hits me. Other thoughts then on this? God will deliver. He doesn't say God, but deliverance will come from another source. Any other thoughts on that?
I think as Christians we have to look at our deliverance as heaven.
Ultimately, yes.
So it's not always, an earthly thing that we're thinking about. But certainly, I understand the point, but I think it's heavenly. That's our goal and that's our prize, and we're delivered through death.
Yeah.
Receive it.
Yeah. Well, it's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They had a fiery furnace in front of them, and what did they say? God will deliver us, but
even if he doesn't.
Even if he does not. Even if he does not, we still won't bow the knee. We still won't do it.
Job said, "Though he slay me."
Yeah. Yeah, so we've got to take the eternal perspective on things as well and say, okay, I may not live to see this deliverance happen. Maybe I don't see that cure. Maybe I don't see that debt. Maybe I never live to see that debt finally paid off. Maybe I don't live to see that tragedy resolved somehow. But I recognize that I'm part of something bigger bigger than just my lifetime. This is a bigger thing than just my lifetime. Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
I absolutely love the second half of verse 14. And who knows whether you've not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Mm-hmm. And I love that Mordecai is saying, God is going to deliver his people. But what if it's you he sent?
Yeah.
Don't shirk that, because what if, and with our lives today, what if we are the people that he has placed in somebody's life to show them the way and bring them to him?
Yeah.
That's a big responsibility that you can't just be like, no, see, deliverance will come, it'll be fine. And then take a step back and be like, it'll just come from someone else, not me.
And it is very pointed. I mean, I don't think he's being mean, but he's being very straight with her, saying, you were not appointed to a life of luxury and wealth and comfort so that you could sit back and do nothing when the time is right to do something. Right? God did not give you an intellect to become a doctor so that you could hoard your own wealth. God did not providentially bring about that windfall or an inheritance so that you could just go buy another toy to sit in your garage. Right? Now, are we allowed to do that? Is it a sin to own a boat? Of course it's not a sin to own a boat. But we've got to ask the same question that Mordecai asked Esther. Are you in this position just so you can be comfortable, or are you in this position because you need to do something good with the gift that you've been given?
By the way, you're going to die too.
Yeah, and whether it's now or later, eventually you're going to die too, right? So I think it's just there's nothing sinful about a vacation to Disney. You are not sinning by going on a vacation to Disney, but you've got to look at your life and really think about, am I giving and am I seeking the kingdom of heaven first? Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And all the other stuff, okay, all that other stuff will be added to you, okay? And that's fine. But are you seeking first his kingdom? Is that the number one priority? Okay, so Rebecca and I are going to be gone
They were going to Gainesville to look for houses.
You didn't hear that from me. I know it's bad news. Brian's going to be teaching on Sunday.
Brian.
Yeah, Brian's excited though because he said, "Oh, I get to teach for the best part of the story."
Great.
All right. We'll see you all next Wednesday.
Anyway.